The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development. With a magazine and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.
Hey, Miss Jena
Rodriguez, how are you? Welcome to the Best You EXPO Miami virtually. This is 2021. How exciting! Yes. I know you have a little bio on Jena. You want to embarrass her a little bit with her own bio?
Well, it's not embarrassing. I'm a word person, and I really love your bio with some of the words that you have in here. So I want to just go ahead and read that. And we've been going back and forth a little bit on Facebook. You're just so hyped and excited. So yes. I'm happy to meet you here.
You too. Both of you. Hi, Tony. Hi, Crystal. Hi. Yeah, it's amazing.
So I'm going to give you guys more camera time. I'm going to jump off, and I want you guys to just really do her introduction, and then it's going to be all you, Jena. So we'll see you in about an hour.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Tony.
Bye, guys. Have fun all weekend long. I'm excited.
Me too.
So where are you logging in from and calling in from, and where are you from?
Where am I sitting, right? Where am I standing? I'm calling in from the Los Angeles area, actually. I moved here a year and a half ago, and so I'm in the Redondo Beach suburb, and, the sun is coming up, and I'm ready. So,
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. It's great. Earlier time there than in Miami, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love your bio. So you are an award-winning transformational mentor and emotional scientist for leaders, celebrity CEOs, and corporation team members. I love that. An emotional scientist.
Yeah.
Love it. And
Thank you.
Methods, the ego tricks, and some other methods that you've created in order to do this. And you're the host of the Brave Entrepreneur podcast. And so what days is that on?
We air a new episode every Monday, but it's, obviously it's evergreen. It's out there on iTunes and Amazon Music and all of the platforms, as well as my YouTube channel, because we do video and audio. So yeah, it's 5 years running. So it's powerful.
Excellent. And so it says that you help leaders get radically brave in their lives and in their business. I love radically brave.
Thank you.
Also crack open the nuances of the ego mind, which helps to keep us playing small. Yeah. Our mind helps us to play small.
When it's all in here.
Play big and be radically brave. So I love it. Well,
thank you.
What are you going to talk to us about today?
I'm going to bring in that emotional science that I'm so passionate about. And the topic is raise your profitable consciousness and master your emotions for success. So I'm going to be sharing the 3 Ps. Hopefully once we expand the screen, we can see all of that. And I'm really excited. I love this topic. And I just think it's really, and kind of that advanced level of, how do we win? How do we outsmart our ego and really stop the hijacking of our momentum? So yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Well, let's do some brave stuff, some radical stuff, and crack open a whole bunch of stuff. All right, Jena?
Absolutely. I'm ready. I'm always ready for brave.
All right. Welcome.
Let's do it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Crystal and Tony, again. And of course, for Bernardo, I so appreciate him for having me, being a part of this event. And I get to kick you off here in the MMI room. And sure enough, we are going to dive into this topic here as we just mentioned. And, with our limited time, I want to dive right in. So, you got my intro. You kind of have an idea of who I am, but I want to share with you really quickly why I speak Brave. Brave Masters is my company, and why I help people get radically brave is I truly believe that brave is not just like fearlessness and facing the unknown, although that's accurate. It's more about facing ourselves. It's about really looking inward and reflecting and self-reflection and introspection and looking inward and going, what do I need to own? What do I need to clean up? What do I need to do about my reality? And when that is your conscious, deliberate commitment, then life can completely change. And, I'll tell you, my life has definitely come from a place of brave by survival. And now I believe I'm in a level of consciousness that I call brave by purpose. And, in the beginning of my life, it was riddled with, a divorce from my parents, and then very quickly moved into a domestic violence household. And it was really hard. There was a level of abuse and drug addiction and stuff like that in my house. And I moved out at 14. And that was my first really big brave by survival move. And then, I experienced things like bullying in my high school years. And so, there's just all these different adversities that I got to experience in the beginning of my time. However, in the back of my mind, there was always this moment where I was like, there's got to be a better way. And in my teen years, I started to commit to personal development and transformational work. And it took me years to really break some of the patterns, and I'm continuing to do that work. And I just say, adversity is not something we're not immune to adversity. Clearly, we all have our variation of that, but it is how we respond. It is how do we show up to that? And like I said, those first years, it was just survival. It was brave by survival. I was making, movements in my life and taking actions that were getting me out of situations and moving me out of hardship. And it took me time to really, start to thrive. However, as I moved into a level of brave by choice, I started to realize I had something to do with my reality. And I think if you're here, you definitely probably get that already, is that we have the power to shift that. And I just encourage people to raise their profitable consciousness to a level that's more about brave by purpose. And what that means to me now is that I'm doing things that are stretching me, that are moving me forward, pulling me forward, that is more about my calling and my purpose on this planet. And I believe that's really big right now, actually. If you can kind of block out all of the external noises going on and really look inward and go, why am I here? What am I supposed to learn from all of this? And how am I supposed to give it back to the world? I believe that's what raising your consciousness is all about. And so here we are. And what profitable consciousness means is, I just believe that if you're going to raise your level of whether it's success financially, of course, that profitable part, but it's also about the bottom line of your life. It's not just the numbers, right? It's not just the financial part by any means, but there's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs here. There's a lot of, career-driven, high achieving people in front of us. And, it's like one thing to be profitable in one area of our life, but I want to see you be profitable in all areas of your life, that entire comprehensive well-being. And so profitable consciousness is a concept that I really kind of simplified that idea. And of course, she mentioned emotional scientist, right? All that means is I am like constantly looking at what makes us behave the way we behave. I'm always looking at like figuring it out. Like, what's the pattern? How is this happening? And so we want to increase our resilience. We want to increase our bounce back factor is another thing I talk a lot about. I'm like, it's one thing to get knocked down, but how fast do you bounce back? And I think when you really, look at yourself and look at the things that you have the power to change and the power to do about it, then your bounce back factor certainly starts to increase. You get there faster. And so today I want to dive into these three concepts here, 1, 2, and 3, and the 3 P's of profitable consciousness, and 1 being personal ownership, 2 being permission to resign, and 3 being pattern breaking. And so let's start. Number 1, I just honor you for number 1, showing up to this experience and like jumping into 2021 and investing in yourself. This event is an investment in yourself. It's about thinking bigger. It's about thinking differently. It's about elevating your focal point, right? It's like when you consume consume shows like this. It's like, I'm so excited. Bernardo was like, we're getting on TV now. And that's the kind of curation we need. We need to be consuming things that are uplifting, that are lifting us up and forward and moving us to the future. And that's my intention as well today, is I want to, elevate that consciousness. And so number one, what is the first P of profitable consciousness? How are you going to start really gaining massive traction and momentum this year? And no matter what your goals are, no matter what you're trying to perform higher at. And number one for me is personal ownership. And so what does that mean? This is all about, and this is where my life really changed, right? I was, of course, struggling financially in my teens and 20s. And I was there, to be honest, there was actually a point where I was homeless. I was, jumping from couch to couch and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Right. It was that self-doubt. And that's not the right question, to be honest. And yet I still feel like that creeps in because our egoic mind was like, let's make something wrong here instead of make something right about this situation. And so owning my past, owning my present, owning my future results was number one. And personal ownership is a practice. It's not something that, is necessarily going to come automatically. And when I started to own my stories and my circumstances and really started to look at what are my belief systems, why am I making the choices I'm making, and understanding where my patterns are, where my behaviors are certainly getting in my way and certainly moving me forward. And honestly, it was a very hard look. There has been plenty of times where I was like, it would be so much easier if I could just pull the covers over my head, go to a level of unconsciousness and just forget all the things I've learned. Right. And I bet you probably felt that way at some point too, where it's like, man, if I could just forget everything I know, life would be easier. But that's not where the power is. It's certainly not where the magic is. And so, owning my story, owning my past and future, and ownership, just to clarify, is certainly not about blame. It's not about condoning someone else's behavior that's abusive or certainly not something you would, you want to accept. It's about, wow, this is in my life for a reason. And all my choices up to this moment have brought me to this point. And it's time for me to take ownership of that. Right. And when I come from ownership, I immediately turn on my personal power.
It is said that we live in a world our questions create. And it's true. Those that have succeeded in life, those that stand out, those that have made a difference, those that are inventing, those that are exploring, pushing the boundaries of reality are based on those that have asked themselves empowering questions. In my new book, The Question, Find Your True Purpose, I help you find your true purpose, find your legacy. For more information, go to www.thequestion.co. If you're interested in working with me, contributing, speaking at any of our many events, partnering, or licensing The Best You, for more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.
And so another thing that I like to talk about is, on top of personal ownership, it's about obviously self-awareness and elevating that level of self-awareness. And, I talk about, as mentioned, I talk a lot about the egoic tricks that our mind makes. And I'm actually going to share a few of those with you. And I'm actually going to share with you a tool or an assessment that will allow you to see what your current patterns are. Because again, self-awareness and ownership is highly important for us to move forward. And if you're here today, I know you're committed to constantly growing, constantly looking at what else can I learn about myself so that I can be the best human that I can possibly be. And so I talk a lot about when we look at our lives, how do we start to take ownership? One, we got to take inventory of what's so. And I call it being in our fishbowl identity. At any given moment, our ego self has created an identity that is living in this, glass fishbowl. I mean, it's like we can see out of it, but we don't realize that we're bumping up against the glass, right? And so that identity becomes somewhat of an autopilot. And the first thing to do is to look at what is our current inventory. How are we living? living? Where are we living? What are we doing? What are we focused on? What kind of beliefs do we currently still have that we're holding on to? What stories are we living in? Everything that you see in your reality right now is an expression of the current fishbowl identity that you're living in. And so what I see, especially working with my private clients, is that we all want to get to the new fishbowl, and yet we're not identifying the distinction. And once we see that, wow, I'm living in this current fishbowl and I want to be in the new one, but I don't know how to get there. How do I break through that, right? And what's in the way, I call it collapsing the gap between where you want to be and where where you are. And that fishbowl identity's got to be melted, right? It's got to be dissolved. And what's in the middle is what I call the ego tricks and the attachments. The source of the ego tricks is attachment. So we're going to get into that in a minute, a little bit deeper. But once you know and you recognize, it's like, wow, my identity, my fishbowl identity that I've created, I generate every day, is it's really comfortable. It's really predictable. I know what it is, right? It's like, 'cause I'm in it. It's almost like we don't always see the water that the fish is swimming in, right? The fish doesn't know it's in water. And so when we bring that level of consciousness to our life, we start to see, oh, wow, this is what I've generated. This is what I've created. And I have something to do about it. And we want something so badly, right? We want that new goal. We want that success. We want that, that new house. We want that, new relationship, whatever it is. And that sits over there in that new fishbowl. And so what we have to do is we have to take that ownership, take the inventory of our fishbowl identity that we're currently in, identify the one we want, of course, and then do the work in between, right? We have to unpack what's in the way. And that leads me to my second point. So the second P is permission to resign. And I am giving you permission right now. Please do this for me. And what that means is when you're looking at that current fishbowl and it doesn't work anymore. It's not serving your new fishbowl by any means. It's not allowing you to move to that new identity that you want to create in order to be in a new reality. And so this is that part where you start to emotionally divorce and resign the things that no longer serve you, that are not aligned with your desired outcome, that are not aligned with your brave by purpose, right? Your purpose in life. And if we aren't conscious of what we are and where we are, and also what we need to let go of, the new goals and the new fishbowl eludes us. It literally sits on a shelf. And it's like, why am I not there? Why am I not achieved what I really want? And it takes brave people. This is why radical brave is so big for me, in order to own where you are and own the attachments that are keeping you in the current state that you're in the current reality, and bravely look at that new fishbowl and go, what do I need to get uncomfortable about? What am I most fearful of? What's the worst that could happen when I jump out and make that leap of faith to be and become the person that's in that new fishbowl? So I hope this is resonating. It's like when you identify and visualize that new fishbowl, it's going to require something more of you. It's going to require a different version of you. And I think that's the hardest part, is to shed our skin and let go of the things that we believe about ourselves, the things that even other people have projected upon us. And I definitely had this experience about 2 years ago. I call it my spiritual breakdown. I was a little bit spiritually bankrupt, let alone financially bankrupt at one point in my life. But spiritual bankruptcy occurred for me in that year. And it was November 2018. And I found myself at a very basically a rock bottom. I was burnt out. I was wearing the busy as a badge of honor. I was doing everything I thought that was, moving the dial, moving me forward, getting me success, right? And I'm a high achiever, yes, but I was also a control freak. So the need for control is an autopilot conversation. You may have heard this already, but it's like when you're in that current fishbowl, that ego is absolutely going to do everything it can to protect you and keep you in it. everything at all costs. And that's what was happening for me at all costs. And that's the truth. It was costing me my profitable consciousness. It was costing me my well-being, and my externally things weren't necessarily falling apart. My marriage was still, good. And my business was growing. However, at what cost? Right. And I was lost at that point in November. And what transpired was I shut off. And it was actually one of the most powerful things I did in order for me to see what I needed to see, and what permission I needed to give myself to resign the things that no longer worked. And so I kind of did it the hard way. And I'm like trying to give you the easier way, which is like, just identify where you are, identify where you want to be, do the work in between, but be willing to say, wow, this doesn't work anymore. And so what happened was I started to, honestly, I just started to surrender. I started meditating like I've never done before. And a lot of high achieving, successful people do so. And I was like, I don't have time. That's crazy talk, right? Except it was the most transformative action I ever took. And I still implement that strategy, right? On a daily basis. And so when I started doing that, and I did it consistently, month and day after day, month after month, and I started to hear that higher self. I started to hear my truth, and the ego got quiet. Right? Because before it was just running me ragged. It was like, keep going. I got to do this. Nobody else is going to do it. I have to do it all by myself. Right? So that was one thing I had to let go of. I was like, wow, do I really have to do this by myself? And so the short story is, within about a month or two of that kind of breakdown moment, I heard things like, wow, I'm not meant to be in this business relationship anymore, like this partnership that I had been signed on to. I heard I was supposed to move across the country. The only reason I'm in LA is because of that moment. I'm from Texas, and I love Texas, still do. But I wanted, my husband and we wanted, new energy, new possibility. And I wanted to live by the ocean. That was certainly one of my happy places. And so there was just all of this shift that started to show up. And it's like, wow, can I be brave enough to move my family across the country? Like, can we do that? Wow, can I be brave enough to communicate that this partnership is no longer aligned with who I'm becoming? Or, is this, even friendships shifted, all of these things. And a lot of it was internal, like let go of that belief that I have to do it on my own. Let go of the belief that, I'm the only one that's going to, make anything happen. What about trusting Gus, as I call it, God, universe, source? What about that? Where'd that go? Right? Where did my spirituality go? And my faith? Right. My belief in something bigger than myself, and trusting something other than my two hands. And it completely changed my life to say the least. Certainly 6 months later, I moved. And, I did say goodbye to the business relationship, as far as the partnership goes. And some other things changed, for sure. And it was a lot of emotional divorce. So when I talk about emotional science, I'm constantly researching. I'm constantly looking at what am I going through? What do I need to emotionally heal? And what do I need to pull up, look at, and let go of? Right. So permission to resign is a huge step in the right direction. And it's really where the brave starts, because the current fishbowl identity, super comfortable. I love it here. I don't want to leave. It's safe. It feels safe. It's the illusion of safety. I feel like I'm in control. I got this, right? I can manage this because I'm familiar with it. And yet everything I want is outside of it. It's in the other fishbowl identity. And so here's some exercise. I'm very practical, simplify this. Later today, after you've watched all these amazing presentations, make sure that you take inventory of where you are and just brain dump, just bullet it, bullet. And then look at, okay, who do I want to become? What fishbowl do I want to aim for? What am I trying to create? And when we take a very honest look, then we have to be brave enough to go, wow, I may have to let go of some relationships, some partnerships, business ideas, beliefs, things that we are absolutely attached to. And, I started to see in that year that I started to like divorce everything that didn't work, is that attachment is the source of all struggle. Write that one down. Attachment is the source of all struggle. And then our egos find value in that struggle. Our egoic self is like, I got this. I can win here. If you struggle some more, I can protect you. If you struggle some more, I can take over. Right. And then we just spin. We just sit on the merry-go-round and we never get to where we really want to go. So when we realize that attachments are the part that actually keeps us anchored to the things that don't work, to the things that are not serving us anymore, and some things might feel really good and they're just not moving the dial. It's not moving us to the goal that we have. And so those are the exercises I recommend at this moment, is to look at what's my fishbowl identity that I'm currently in, and then the new fishbowl identity I want to create. Because at any given second, any given moment, our egos are just shifting that fishbowl identity. And we're living inside of that bubble and that glass shell, and we have to dissolve that shell and keep moving it forward, keep expanding it. And the truth is, it's an illusion of the ego. And however, it is that construct, it is that container that we put ourselves in. And so that's a brave exercise that you can take from this right away. Then the third thing, I love this conversation here. This is where we talk about some of the ego tricks. So the third step is pattern breaking. Right. So now we've identified, okay, I need to let go of this belief. I need to let go of this relationship, this idea, etc. It's not leading me to where I want to be, and it's not who I'm becoming. And however, it's kind of like, what's in the middle? What is keeping me keeping me away from the new identity, as well as stuck in place? And what I like to share with you is what I call ego tricks, right? The ego tricks are the signals that I have an attachment. That's basically what I call it, right? If I have an ego trick going on, I have an attachment underneath it. And you got to get to the source of that ego trick. And the other thing I created for everyone was I started to realize, again, patterns in myself and in others. And I saw how all the ego tricks kind of fall under 4 egoic archetypes. And this is my gift to you today. I actually wrote it up here, bravemasters.com/quiz. So you can take a very quick 6-question assessment and find out which egoic archetype are you, predominantly using. We use them all at some level. However, you want to find out which one am I leaning on right now. And sometimes as our focus changes, it's like, wow, this year I really want to create that special relationship. I want to create, my personal life. I want to empower my personal life this year. I want to get my health back, things like that. We might lean into a particular egoic archetype. And then when we're in our professional career, there's a different relatedness, and we might use a different egoic archetype there and all the ego tricks within. And so it's a way to simplify this conversation. And I'll tell you, it's when I realized what power this archetype, this kind of assessment would bring to people. Over, thousands of people have already taken it. And I can see, I have a pie chart, of course, I can see where people land. And it's so interesting because the moment you understand you and your behavior, and then you can recognize, wow, other people have this going on too. And I could see what kind of the numbers showed. It was really telling. And it was like, it almost helped me see, or not almost, it certainly added value to me where I could go, well, maybe they're this archetype, right? Maybe their behavior is tied to this archetype. And I need to have a little more understanding and compassion for that, because we get so stuck in who we are and how we behave and what we do and what we expect of others. And it's like, well, what about them? They have egos too, right? So it's huge in interpersonal relationships, understanding what's going on in the world and even collectively. There is a lot of ego going on, right? And the truth is, it's always happening. It's always happening at some level. But the more conscious we are, and that is my mission, is to raise the level of consciousness on this planet. And if I can raise your profitable consciousness and help you emotionally succeed, right, increasing that emotional IQ, then we all win, right? We all win.
To find out about my latest projects, get a free coaching lesson, or download my book, go to www.bernardo-moya.com. I
want to share with you a couple of, number one, I'll tell you what the archetypes are, and then a few of the ego tricks within. Number one, what you'll find out on the assessment is you're either the rebel, the illusionist, the martyr, or the realist. And in those names, you don't have to put a whole lot of meaning around them. They're just identifiers, right? It's not a bad thing to be a rebel. It's not a bad thing to be an illusionist. Nothing's bad, right? And remember that there's definitions of words, but then we all give it meaning. And I believe that's also part of the strife that occurs, is so much of our interpretation of what we think other people mean based on the word they said. That's where we get into assumptions and disagreements and misunderstandings. So don't make any meaning to the word. However, just find out what's the concept about, and who am I behaving as, right? So those are the 4 egoic archetypes. And I just, like I said, want to cover a few of the ego tricks within. And one of them is the shoulds. The shoulds, like we could sing it from the rooftop. This ego trick actually falls under the martyr. And if you find yourself, I should do this, I should be doing that, I should do this for this person, I should show up at this, it's going to make them feel bad if I don't, right? It's a lot of, and there's a positive spin to shoulds. Remember, meaning, there's a positive spin to shoulds. Like, I should do this to be in my new fishbowl. I should write the book. I should build my business. I should, those kind of exciting, shoulds. But there's also a very clear egoic should as well. And, and that looks like obligation. It looks like disalignment with who we are and what we really want. When you hear yourself shoulding, right, then you want to look in and you want to ask yourself, okay, why am I saying that? Am I trying to do something I don't really want to do? Bottom line, I just don't want to do it. Or it's not right for me. It may be right for them, but it's not right for me. Right. And I think, we tend to always kind of get off the rails and get off, the alignment that we need in order to be in that new fishbowl by shoulding, because we keep saying yes to things that we shouldn't say yes to because it's not right for us. And I'm giving you permission today to focus on the things that are right for you. And so if you hear yourself say should, simply a signal, and then you get to look at what's the attachment underneath. I'm actually, if you take the quiz, just so you know, once you take the quiz, click the link, you'll get a free video training tutorial on it. And right below that is the download of all 14 ego tricks and their meanings, right? The definitions. So just wanted you to know that all that stuff is there available for you. Okay, number 2, the second one I want to mention is the when then. I think this one's very powerful. It does make a huge difference in the momentum that we create in our life. And basically all it means is you stop yourself from moving forward in certain circumstances, when you say, when this happens, then I will do that. Or when I have enough money, then I'll invest in myself. When I lose 50 pounds, then I'll be happy, right? I mean, it's like autopilot. And that falls under the realist. It's very practical, right? It's like, well, if it makes sense. It makes sense, it's common sense. When this happens, then I can do that. And that stops us in our tracks. So I'm going to give you an example. Last year, like I said, we made the decision to move to LA and we had to sell our house. So the decision was made in February. The house was on the market in March. My daughter was finishing school, junior high school. And I knew that, so we planned to move in the summer so she could finish her school. And, and I was like, if it sells before then, we'll have to figure it out. But it didn't. It reached this point where, every conversation I had with a neighbor or a friend or whoever, and they were going, when are you going to move? When are you moving? When are you moving? And my answer was like, well, when we sell the house, then we'll move. And when we sell, and every time I said it, And I mean, as I said it more and more and more, I started to feel the heaviness. I was like, I feel so trapped by that. I feel so blocked. I feel like there's no power. I have to wait for someone else to buy this house in order to do what I know I'm supposed to do. And then like literally June 8th, I think it was beginning of June. And I heard myself for like the 20th time say it one more time. A neighbor, and they asked me multiple times, when are you moving? And I was like, when the house sells, then we move. And I just said it one more time. And I was like, why am I saying that? I'm blocking myself. I'm blocking the flow of possibility. And I was talking to a friend about it. And he said, why do you have to wait till it sells? Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the win then. That's what's blocking me from moving forward. In that moment, I got my brave on and I said, we're moving. Regardless of when the house sells. The house will sell, but it's just not in maybe my timeline, which we get attached to, right? We get attached to the outcome. We get attached to win. And so ultimately, we picked a date. That was the brave move. So I knew we needed to get to California before high school started, and the clock was ticking. And I was like, I'm waiting on someone else to determine my movement forward and my action forward. And so we decided July 8th, we would drive out of there regardless of what happened with the house. Because even if it's empty, we can still sell it, right? So sure enough, we made that decision. We moved, and I realized what's the attachment under when then was I didn't think, I need the money from the house in order to, make the move. And I was like, is that really true? And it wasn't. We figured it out regardless, and we were okay regardless. But that's the way the ego plays you. And Daryl, 100% don't be attached to the outcome, please. And so the win then is another very easy ego trick to recognize is when it's conditional, right? When you're creating conditions around moving towards your new fishbowl identity. Number 3. Is requirements. This one's really big for me because I'm a realist. That's my predominant ego trick. And a lot of people are. The numbers show it. And so this means that I am stuck on my requirement, meaning I have to have it a particular way before I will take action. This is how it is. This is what's so, it's almost like there's no other story. There's no other way to look at it. And expectations really play out in this ego trick is, the requirement of I have to have this in order to be okay. I have to have this in order to have what I want or have it turn out the way I want. So requirement is another big one that I see go on. And it's so subtle. And again, like Crystal shared in my bio, I'm always looking for the nuance, right? It's like that it's almost like the words and the meaning below the words we're saying to ourselves. And this is one that gets really tricky because it sounds really pragmatic. It seems very right, right? Yet it stops our flow. It completely shuts down the floodgates, and we're trying to move in the right direction, right? So the requirements is another one. Okay, number 4. I'm going to give you 2 more to play with. Number 4 is fear. The 4th ego trick that I want to share today. Fear, pretty simple, right? We have fear. Now, it can mask itself and look like concern, worry. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. I don't know if this is, if you hear yourself, I don't know, or like, I'm not sure, or I'm afraid this is, not going to turn out the way I want. Any of those are subtle levels of fear. Now, of course, you can have the full blown out, I'm terrified for my life, right? Or we just typically operate at this low level of worry and stress. And anxiety starts to show up because we're just worried about things and we don't know how things are going to turn out. And the egoic self is constantly looking for certainty. And that's why it holds us in the fishbowl that we're in, is that certainty. And so if we're in fear, which is the illusionist, is part of the illusionist archetype, and it's just our go-to. And this one is, I've certainly been in this archetype as well. And I see certain areas of my life that I worry most about. And that's one thing to consider is maybe you have an archetype in relation to the area of life, whether it's financial or relationship. Right. I've been burned before. I don't want to get committed in a relationship again, or, financially. Like for me, I came from a very hardship financial upbringing, and I had to file bankruptcy in my first business 15 years ago. And so fear kind of shows up there unless I am conscious and aware. And so relationship, not so much. Right. Which is good. 20 years in marriage. Pretty good. Right. So fear is a big one, and especially with, a lot of adversity going on in the world, we've got this underbelly fear going on, and we really got to bring it to the surface and go, what is this really about? What is the attachment that I have around that? And then the fifth one I want to share as we close out here is anger or frustration. Thanks, Daryl. Anger and frustration is, it's the rebel, right? And it's a little more expressive, right? Clearly, sometimes when you can feel it, you can feel like, you snap at someone, or you literally get angry, right? And it's like you say some harsh words, or you judge people, and you say things that you really wouldn't want to say, if you were in your higher self. And so if you're angry, frustrated, annoyed, irritated, those are all the same thing. Rage is the ultimate, right? There's all levels of extremes, and it's kind of a scale of things. And I just want you to take inventory of that as well. It's like, which one do I use to cope? Which one do I use when I'm uncomfortable? Which one do I use when I'm not getting my way, or the outcome isn't happening fast enough? And so when you start to understand your patterns, when you understand the egoic archetype that you are behaving in, and remember, behavior is editable. And in order to edit, you got to do the inner work. And I'm just giving you a tool to make that easy. And hello, Tony. All right. So we're wrapping up.
We didn't want to cut you off. We wanted to make sure we got your full presentation in.
That was it. That was the end.
A very stringent timeline. So it was the perfect timing. Yeah. Edible. I heard edible, but you said editable. And I'm like,
editable.
I heard food and coffee. So, Crystal, what did you think of that? That was amazing.
Were you guys listening?
I think I have a full page of notes over here. No lie. Awesome. This was excellent. It was excellent.
Where can we see more of you on your social media sites? Give the viewers a place to go check you out.
Yeah, for sure. So that was my last statement. So definitely the quiz, right? Go to my website. You can take the quiz. You'll learn more of me and of the information. And of course, my social media is Jena Rodriguez. So find me all over.
Bravemasters.com.
Yes. Yep. Bravemasters.com/quiz.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me know what you get.
You're going to stick around all weekend and watch some of the other speakers on all the different stages, or check out our red carpet tomorrow. There's so much going on here at the Miami Best You Expo 2021. It's virtual. Very excited to travel the world with all of you guys. Crystal, you want to add anything before we go to Les Brown? We've got a great little presentation Les Brown's going to share with us, Jena.
Yeah, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for that. We have a lot of similar, I guess, word patterns, which means thought patterns and everything. So sure. We'll be in touch. I
would love that. I know we keep crossing paths, so we need to connect further.
All right.
Thanks, Crystal.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.